My name is Olivia, I'm 40, and my husband handed me divorce papers at my birthday party. Before I tell you about how my revenge made him panic call 78 times, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It was supposed to be a celebration, my 40th birthday. Our sprawling, modern villa was filled with the soft hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the scent of expensive catering. I was dressed in a shimmering silk gown, feeling like I finally had it all: a successful career as a financial advisor, a beautiful home, and a husband, Andrew, who I thought adored me. But even as I smiled and mingled with our carefully curated guests, a cold, tightening knot formed in my stomach. Andrew was off. Distant. His eyes, usually warm and focused on me at these events, darted around the room. He kept checking his watch, then his phone, his thumb nervously brushing over the screen. He'd disappear into the study for what felt like too long, then reappear, looking even more agitated, a strange, almost furtive energy about him. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just pre-party jitters, or perhaps a significant deal at Stafford Holdings, his father's prestigious financial firm where we both worked. But then, my phone vibrated, a discreet buzz against my palm. It was Theo Russell, my old comrade from Army Special Operations, now my head of cybersecurity at Axiom Capital. The message was curt, urgent, and direct: need to talk. Found something. Not good. My blood ran cold, a familiar chill that transported me back to a different life, a different kind of danger. I knew Theo. He didn't send messages like that unless it was serious. Very serious. What I didn't know then was that the worst was yet to come. The real betrayal was just beginning, a meticulously planned ambush that would tear my meticulously built world apart. But from the ashes of that destruction, I would rise, rebuilding my life on foundations stronger and more formidable than they, in their arrogance, could ever imagine. The story you are about to hear is about how a quiet woman, underestimated and discarded, turned her pain into a weapon, ensuring that those who wronged her would face the true cost of their deceit. I slipped away from the party, excusing myself to the ladies' room, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The delicate lace of my gown suddenly felt constricting. I knew Theo wouldn't alarm me for nothing. He was the only one who truly knew my past, the intense, demanding 8 years I'd spent as a covert operative for the military, operating in the shadows, before I ever stepped foot into the gleaming, cutthroat world of finance. That life, those highly specialized skills, the discipline, the strategic thinking, the ability to control every single reaction, they were buried deep, a part of me I guarded fiercely. I had built this new life, this polished facade of a sophisticated financial advisor, brick by painstaking brick, carefully constructing a normal existence. I was trying to outrun the lingering ghosts of my past, the constant hum of vigilance, and the profound pain that still resonated deep within my core. But some ghosts, it seemed, never truly leave, and sometimes, they even bring new ones with them. As I returned to the living room, a new wave of guests had arrived, a late but highly anticipated entrance. Richard Stafford, Andrew's father and the undisputed patriarch of the sprawling Stafford empire, strode in, his usual air of self-importance amplified, almost radiating across the room. He commanded attention without even trying. Beside him, almost clinging to his arm, was Sophia, Andrew's younger sister, the family's golden child. From the very moment I married Andrew 5 years ago, Sophia had been a constant, irritating thorn in my side. Richard and Eleanor, Andrew's mother, had always doted on her, showering her with praise, endless gifts, and unquestioning privilege, despite her complete lack of any real talent or drive in the actual business world. She was undeniably beautiful, yes, pampered, absolutely, but utterly devoid of the grit, the strategic mind, and the raw intelligence required to truly run a financial empire, or even a modest business. Eleanor, in particular, had never missed an opportunity to subtly, or not so subtly, remind me that my humble origins as an orphan, a scholarship kid who had pulled herself up by her bootstraps, meant I would never truly belong in their elite, old-money circle. I vividly remember one particularly excruciating Christmas dinner. Eleanor had looked pointedly at my simple, elegant dress, a designer piece, mind you, but understated, and sniffed, her nose wrinkling slightly. "Oh, Olivia, darling, you always dress so, practically. So sensible." Don't you ever wish for something a little more glamorous? Something that truly reflects the Stafford name, now that you're part of it? It was a constant barrage of veiled insults, each one a tiny chip at my carefully constructed self-worth. Richard, too, would often publicly dismiss my financial insights and innovative strategies in board meetings, even when those very strategies brought in millions in profit for the company. He would wave away my ideas, only to later praise Andrew or Sophia for echoing my exact points, moments after I had made them. It was infuriating, a blatant disregard for my contributions, but I swallowed it, determined to prove my worth through sheer, undeniable results. My salary, though significant, always felt like a concession, not a true acknowledgement of my value. But tonight, something was profoundly different. Richard wasn't just with Sophia. He was with Marcus Winters, Andrew's ex-boyfriend. Marcus, who had vanished from the financial scene 3 years ago after a murky scandal that Richard had conveniently swept under the rug, making it disappear as if it never happened. My gut clenched with a familiar premonition. I saw the way Marcus and Sophia exchanged glances, a familiarity that went beyond mere friendship, a shared understanding that hinted at something deeper, darker. Richard, with a theatrical flourish, announced Marcus's triumphant return to Stafford Holdings, praising his unparalleled vision and unwavering loyalty, words that felt like a direct insult to me. As he spoke, I caught Andrew's eye across the crowded room. Then Marcus's. Then Sophia's. There was a strange, conspiratorial glint in all three of their eyes, a shared secret, a silent agreement that made my skin crawl with unease. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just my old paranoia from my covert life creeping back in, an occupational hazard. But deep down, in the core of my being, I knew better. This wasn't paranoia. This was the calm before the storm. The foundation for the core conflict was being laid, brick by painful, insidious brick, and I was about to be buried under it. This was their final act of public humiliation, designed to break me. The party finally wound down, the last of the reluctant guests trickling out, leaving behind a chaotic mess of half-empty champagne glasses, crumpled napkins, and the lingering scent of stale celebration. I was in the kitchen, trying to find some sense of calm amidst the post-party detritus, when I heard their voices from Andrew's study. Andrew, Richard, Sophia, and Marcus. Their tones were low, hushed, almost conspiratorial, but in the quiet of the villa, I could make out snippets. Words like finalizing, assets, and the chilling phrase, getting rid of her. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. I knew. I just knew. Every instinct, honed from years in the field, screamed danger. I walked back into the living room, my face a carefully blank mask, my posture straight and unwavering. Andrew saw me, his eyes widening for a split second, a flicker of something that looked like guilt, before hardening into a cold, determined stare. He strode towards me, a thin, legal-looking envelope clutched in his hand. My breath hitched in my throat. I knew what it was before he even opened his mouth. "We're done, Olivia," he said, his voice completely devoid of any warmth, any emotion. It was chilling. He thrust the papers into my hand, the crisp edge of the envelope digging into my palm. "Happy birthday. Consider this your present." It was a divorce petition. Not just a paper, but a weapon, delivered with brutal intent right on my 40th birthday. The sheer audacity, the public humiliation of it, was like a physical punch to the gut. My hands trembled almost imperceptibly, but I forced myself to hold them steady, to betray no weakness. I looked at Richard, who stood a few feet behind Andrew, a smug, satisfied smirk twisting his lips. He nodded in agreement, a silent endorsement of his son's cruelty. Then I looked at Sophia, who was practically preening, her eyes gleaming with malicious triumph. "And there's something else you should know, Olivia," Andrew continued, his voice dripping with condescension, savoring every word. "Marcus and I are getting back together. We've been seeing each other for a while." He paused, letting that sink in, watching for my reaction. When I gave him none, he delivered the final blow. "And Sophia, well, Sophia and I have been seeing each other for a while too. She's carrying my child." The world tilted on its axis. Andrew and Sophia? His own sister? My mind reeled, trying to process the grotesque implications. It was a twisted, sickening betrayal that went beyond anything I could have ever imagined, not just my husband, but my sister-in-law, the golden child, the one who had always resented me, now literally carrying his child. It was a calculated act, designed to inflict maximum pain and public shame. And Richard, his father, was clearly in on it, supporting this abhorrent charade, complicit in the destruction of my life. He even had the audacity to add, his voice oozing disdain, "We're promoting Marcus to your position, Olivia. You were never quite family material. We need someone who truly understands the meaning of inheritance and legacy." Then Eleanor, Andrew's mother, emerged from the study, her face a mask of false sympathy, a performance for any lingering staff. "Honestly, Olivia, you never truly fit in. Your background, it simply wasn't compatible with ours. You were never worthy of our family. This is for the best, darling." A searing, hot flash crawled up my neck, a familiar warning sign. But I clamped down on it, hard. Years of covert operations had taught me to control my reactions, to compartmentalize pain, to use emotion as fuel, not as a weakness. I looked at their faces, Andrew's chilling indifference, Richard's smug, triumphant satisfaction, Sophia's malicious smirk, Eleanor's thinly veiled disdain. They expected me to crumble, to scream, to cry, to make a scene. They expected a breakdown, a public spectacle. But I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I wouldn't give them another ounce of my pain, not a single tear. I took a deep, steadying breath, the faint, cloying scent of wilting roses and stale champagne filling my nostrils. My voice was steady, almost eerily calm, the words delivered with a quiet intensity that belied the turmoil within. "I understand," I said, each word a cold, quiet promise that hung heavy in the air. "I understand perfectly." I turned, the divorce papers still clutched tightly in my hand, and walked out of my own birthday party, leaving their shocked, momentarily speechless faces behind. They thought they had won. They had no idea who they were truly dealing with. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of their nightmare. I didn't go home. There was no home to go to anymore. I went straight to my secret office, a nondescript building downtown that housed Axiom Capital, the financial empire I had secretly built over the past 2 decades. The moment I walked in, the cool, sterile air of the office, the hum of servers, was a stark contrast to the suffocating heat and emotional toxicity of the Stafford villa. Theo was already there, his face grim, his eyes reflecting a quiet concern. My core team was assembled, a well-oiled machine of loyalty and brilliance. Maya Rodriguez, our digital intelligence analyst, her fingers flying across multiple screens, processing data at an astonishing speed. Victor Castillo, a former special ops coordinator and my chief strategist, his gaze sharp and focused, already anticipating my next move. Dennis Walsh, our international finance expert, buried in complex financial models and spreadsheets, and Samuel Kent, a former FBI agent, now head of security, his imposing presence a silent, comforting reassurance. And then there was Olivia Mercer, my deep-cover operative, a ghost in plain sight, who had been meticulously embedded as the Stafford's event coordinator for 3 years, feeding us every minute detail of their lives, every whispered conversation, every illicit transaction. "They just handed me the divorce papers," I stated, my voice flat, dropping the crumpled envelope onto the polished conference table with a decisive thud. "At my party. Andrew, Marcus, Sophia. Richard and Eleanor were all in on it. Andrew and Sophia are apparently involved. And she's pregnant." The words felt foreign coming out of my mouth, surreal. Theo nodded, his expression grim. "We suspected as much. Andrew and Marcus have been meeting secretly for 6 months, carefully covering their tracks. Sophia joined them 3 months ago, acting as their inside informant for your personal dealings. They've been systematically transferring your assets out of joint accounts, manipulating your portfolio data to create fake losses, making it look like you were hemorrhaging money. They wanted to strip you bare, make you look incompetent and reckless, and then discard you publicly. It was a well-orchestrated financial and personal ambush. I felt a hot surge of rage, but it wasn't the kind that made you lash out. It was a cold, calculated rage, simmering just beneath the surface, transforming into pure, unadulterated resolve. Good. It's time. I looked at my team, their faces reflecting a mix of concern for me and fierce, unwavering loyalty to our mission. 23 years ago, I began, my voice low but firm, cutting through the tense silence of the room. Richard Stafford didn't just destroy a company. He destroyed my family. My father, Thomas Keller, owned a small, but incredibly thriving and ethical financial firm. He was an honest man, a good man, beloved by his clients. Richard Stafford, with his ruthless tactics, his insatiable greed, and his network of shady dealings, systematically dismantled everything my father had painstakingly built. He ruined countless families in the process. My father, unable to bear the weight of his life's work crumbling around him, died of a massive heart attack from the overwhelming stress. Just 3 months after his company, our family's entire inheritance, collapsed. My mother, Elizabeth Keller, couldn't live without him, couldn't bear the shame and the loss. She took her own life exactly 3 months later. The room was silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. This was the truth I had kept hidden for so long, the raw, bleeding wound that had never truly healed. It was the driving force behind every decision, every sacrifice, every solitary night I had spent building this empire. I was 17 years old, an orphan overnight, with nothing but a burning desire for justice. I swore then, standing over their fresh graves, that I would make them pay. I spent 8 years in covert operations, not just learning how to fight, but how to strategize, how to analyze, how to exploit weaknesses, how to play the long game. Then I used every skill, every contact, every penny I earned from those operations, to build Axiom Capital. It operates in 11 countries, completely off their radar, a phantom corporation until now. I infiltrated their world, married Andrew, patiently gained their trust, all to get close enough to understand their every move, every secret. This wasn't just about simple revenge. This was about deep, unyielding justice. And now, it's time to collect. Every penny, every pound of flesh. I looked at Victor, my chief strategist. Victor, initiate Phase 3. Activate all assets. Maya, I need every single piece of their financial manipulation laid bare, every hidden transaction, every forged document. Dennis, prepare the final SEC filings, the IRS reports, the international wire fraud complaints. Samuel, secure all our assets, our people, make sure no one can touch us. And Mercer, I spoke into a comm link, confirm the board meeting schedule for Stafford Holdings. It's time to bring their entire corrupt empire crashing down. They thought they were dealing with a naive, disposable wife. They are about to meet Olivia Keller, the woman who has spent half her life planning their complete and utter downfall. They are about to learn the true meaning of a promotion into ruin. The air in the Stafford Holdings boardroom was thick with a palpable tension, buzzing with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Richard, Andrew, and Marcus sat at the head of the long, polished mahogany table, their faces set in expressions of smug confidence, almost radiating a sense of absolute victory. They had called this emergency board meeting, ostensibly to clarify my sudden departure and formally announce Marcus's grand promotion to my senior executive position, a deliberate public slight. They genuinely believed they had me cornered, that I would be a weeping, broken mess, easily dismissed and forgotten. They had no idea the storm I was about to unleash, how completely I had rewritten their script. I walked in, my custom-tailored power suit crisp and immaculate, not a single hair out of place. My calm, almost serene demeanor was a stark contrast to the predatory suits and anxious faces surrounding me. There were immediate gasps, a ripple of whispers that spread through the room like wildfire. Richard's face, which had been set in a triumphant sneer, tightened visibly, his eyes narrowing. Andrew's jaw dropped, his face paling instantly. Sophia, sitting beside him, looked like she'd seen a ghost, her carefully constructed composure crumbling. I walked with a measured, deliberate pace, my heels clicking softly on the marble floor, and took my seat at the far end of the table, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. It was the smile of a predator, calm and ready. Richard cleared his throat, attempting to regain some semblance of control, his voice a strained attempt at authority. Olivia, I believe you're mistaken. This is a private board meeting for current Stafford Holdings executives. Oh, I assure you, Richard, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I countered, my voice clear, steady, and dangerously calm, cutting through the rising tension like a sharpened blade. In fact, I have a few things to clarify myself. I nodded subtly towards a hidden camera lens. On cue, the massive wall-mounted screen flickered to life, displaying a cascade of complex financial spreadsheets, meticulously detailed transaction logs, and incriminating email chains. For the past 6 months, I began, my voice gaining strength with each word, the words echoing through the suddenly silent room. Andrew Stafford, with the systematic assistance of Marcus Winters, has been meticulously manipulating the financial data of Stafford Holdings. They've been creating fictitious losses to depress stock prices, diverting vast sums of company funds into shell corporations, and engaging in flagrant insider trading using confidential information. All for personal gain and to orchestrate the public downfall of certain individuals. Richard slammed his fist on the table, a pathetic attempt at intimidation. This is outrageous. Slander. She's unhinged. Is it? I challenged, my eyes, cold and unwavering, locking with his. Let's look at the evidence, shall we? Maya's remote cursor, swift and precise, highlighted specific lines of code, revealing how Andrew had systematically altered portfolio values, fabricating losses of millions. Dennis's voice, calm, authoritative, and backed by irrefutable data, played over the speakers, explaining the intricate web of offshore accounts and dummy corporations they had used to launder money. The board members, initially skeptical, their faces now shifting from curiosity to shock, began to murmur amongst themselves, their expressions turning from pale to a ghastly green as the undeniable, damning truth unfolded before their very eyes. Every number, every date, every account number was meticulously displayed. Then came the moment. The ultimate payoff. I stood up, slowly, deliberately, walking around the table towards Richard, my gaze never leaving his. You thought you knew me, didn't you, Richard? You thought I was just some naive woman you could easily discard, someone you could use and then toss aside without a second thought. The woman you're threatening right now, the woman you thought you had broken. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a chilling whisper, audible only to him, designed to pierce through his arrogance. Do you remember Thomas Keller? His eyes, once full of a predatory gleam, widened in sudden, stark realization. A flicker of raw fear replaced his smugness. He swallowed hard, his throat working convulsively. He was my father, I stated, my voice now ringing through the room, clear and resonant, carrying the weight of 2 decades of suppressed pain. 23 years ago, you systematically destroyed his company, Keller Financial. You broke him. You pushed him into an early grave, and my mother, Elizabeth, heartbroken and defeated, followed him shortly after. You thought you got away with it, didn't you? You thought I was just some random woman who happened to fall for your son, a convenient pawn in your games. The room erupted. Board members gasped, some rising from their seats in shock. Andrew looked like he was about to vomit, his face ashen. Sophia's face was a mask of pure terror, her eyes wide, glassy, and fixed on me. This entire time, I continued, my voice rising, growing in power and conviction, I wasn't just your daughter-in-law. I was Olivia Keller. The woman who spent 2 decades planning your downfall. I built Axiom Capital, a global financial powerhouse operating in 11 countries, specifically for this exact moment. Every investment, every strategic move, every client gained, was a step towards this day. I gestured to the screen, where new documents flashed into view, official filings, legal notices. And while you were busy manipulating my personal divorce papers and shamelessly trying to steal my assets, I was busy. I've already filed comprehensive reports with the SEC, the Department of Justice, and several international regulatory bodies. Every single piece of evidence you just saw, every manipulated document, every illegal transaction, every damning email, it's all in their hands. The lawyer for the prosecution will be calling soon. Richard's face was utterly ashen, his body trembling. He tried to speak, but only a gurgling sound escaped his throat. And that's not all, I added, a cold, satisfied smile touching my lips. While you were focused on your petty betrayals, your company's board meetings, and your attempts to secure your children's inheritance, Axiom Capital has quietly, systematically, acquired majority stakes in your 3 largest technology subsidiaries. Your most profitable assets, Richard, the ones that kept this failing empire afloat, now belong to me. The room descended into utter chaos. The stock price of Stafford Holdings, displayed live and mercilessly on another screen, plummeted. 40%. Then 50%. Then 60%. Board members were shouting, scrambling for their phones, some openly weeping. Sophia let out a high-pitched shriek as she saw her meticulously planned inheritance and trust funds, directly tied to the company's performance, flash red, officially frozen. My money! My college fund! My money, she shrieked, tears streaming down her face, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. Andrew looked utterly defeated, his eyes wide with a terror that mirrored mine from months ago. The cold, mocking laughter he'd given me at my birthday party echoed in my mind. Now, it was his turn to panic. This wasn't just a divorce. This was the complete and utter demolition of their entire empire. The aftermath was swift, merciless, and broadcast across every major news outlet. The news of the Stafford Holdings collapse spread like wildfire, dominating every financial headline for weeks. Richard Stafford, once a titan of industry, was forced to resign in disgrace, his reputation in tatters, his face a constant fixture on cable news as a symbol of corporate greed. Marcus Winters, attempting a desperate flight from justice, was apprehended at the airport, his private jet intercepted on the tarmac. Andrew and Sophia, their faces pale, gaunt, and now plastered across every news channel as co-conspirators, were a picture of pathetic desperation, their once arrogant stares replaced by hollow terror. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. 78 missed calls from Andrew. He tried every number, every email address, every social media account he could possibly find, sending frantic messages begging, then threatening, then promising anything. Sophia, too, sent a barrage of desperate messages, pleading for mercy, for a second chance. I blocked every single one. I watched their public panic, their chaotic descent into ruin, from the calm, controlled environment of my command center. It wasn't sweet, exactly. It was just justice. Pure, unadulterated justice, delivered with surgical precision. I continued to dismantle their business relationships, systematically cutting off their access to capital, their lines of credit, and their last vestiges of influence. The empire Richard had built on lies and deceit was crumbling, brick by excruciating brick, a deliberate, agonizing process for them. Then, Eleanor, Andrew's mother, showed up at my office. Unannounced. Her face, usually so composed, so haughty, so perfectly made up, was now pale, drawn, and heavily lined with stress, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen from what looked like days of weeping. She looked utterly broken, a shadow of her former self. Olivia, she pleaded, her voice hoarse, barely a whisper, please. Have mercy on my children. They've lost everything. Andrew, Sophia, they're destroyed. Their lives are ruined. I looked at her, the woman who had always made me feel small, unworthy, a perpetual outsider. I remembered every snide remark, every dismissive glance, every subtle insinuation that I wasn't good enough. I remembered the way she had looked at me on my birthday, her eyes filled with cold disdain. Mercy? I asked, my voice flat, devoid of any warmth. Where was your mercy when you watched your husband systematically destroy my family, driving my father to his grave and my mother to suicide? Where was your mercy when you stood by silently as your son humiliated me on my birthday, publicly serving me divorce papers? Where was your mercy when you told me I was never worthy? She wrung her hands, her designer handbag clutched tightly against her chest. But they're your family, Olivia. Andrew is your husband. Sophia is your sister-in-law. He was my husband, I corrected her, emphasizing the past tense, a deliberate sting in my voice. And as for family, you want to talk about family, Eleanor? Let's talk about it then. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a quiet, devastating whisper designed to pierce through her last defenses. Richard has been cheating on you for years. With multiple women. He squandered your shared wealth on them. And Sophia. Sophia isn't even Richard's daughter. Eleanor froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, then horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She's the daughter of Bradford Whitley, I continued, watching the color drain from her face, her carefully painted facade cracking. Richard's secret business partner. The man who was actually behind the systematic destruction of my parents' company, Keller Financial, 2 decades ago. Richard was just a pawn in his bigger game, a means to an end. He used you, Eleanor. He used your family, your name. Just like he tried to use me. You lived a lie, protected by deceit. Her face crumpled. The last vestiges of her pride, her aristocratic composure, shattered completely. She stumbled back, falling into the nearest chair, sobbing uncontrollably. She had chosen to believe in Richard's lies, to turn a blind eye to his corruption, to look down on me, and now the truth was a bitter, poisoned pill she had to swallow. I watched her, feeling nothing but a profound sense of finality. This was it. The last, festering link to their toxic world was severed, irrevocably broken. I had not only taken their wealth and power, but I had stripped away their carefully constructed facade of family, loyalty, and respectability. It was a complete and utter victory, and it felt like a heavy, suffocating weight had finally lifted from my shoulders. The anger I carried for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. A year later, the dust had truly settled, replaced by new growth. The Stafford name was synonymous with scandal and ruin, a cautionary tale whispered in financial circles. Richard was facing a 20-year prison sentence, his appeals exhausted, his cries for a lenient custody arrangement for Sophia's child ignored. Andrew and Sophia were awaiting trial for financial fraud, their twisted relationship, exposed in open court, a grotesque detail on every tabloid. Marcus Winters, too, was behind bars, a minor footnote in their downfall. But for me, it was a new dawn. I had fully transformed Axiom Capital. It was no longer just a tool for revenge, it was a shield, a beacon. We were now a leading global organization dedicated to protecting families from predatory financial practices, using our vast resources, our sophisticated intelligence, and our unwavering ethical compass to expose and dismantle corrupt corporations. I established a massive fund, the Keller Foundation, providing comprehensive legal aid, financial support, and even mental health counseling to victims of financial fraud, giving them the justice and healing my parents never received. My salary, now freely earned, went directly to fund these initiatives. Eleanor, stripped of her wealth and social standing, a ghost of her former self, now worked as a volunteer at a small, local charity organization, ironically, one that received consistent, anonymous funding from the Keller Foundation. I saw her once, from a distance, at a fundraising gala for a children's hospital. She looked frail, humbled, her eyes shadowed with regret. I felt no triumph, no lingering bitterness. Just a quiet acknowledgement of how far we had both fallen, and how profoundly differently we had risen. My family's funeral felt less like a heavy burden now, more like a launch pad. Theo, Maya, Victor, Dennis, and Samuel, my incredible, loyal team, remained steadfastly by my side, their loyalty unwavering, their dedication absolute. We were more than just colleagues, we were a true family, bound not by blood, but by shared purpose, forged in the crucible of adversity. Olivia Mercer, my brilliantly effective embedded operative, had moved on to a new, even more challenging mission, her unique skills proving invaluable in our expanded operations. One crisp autumn morning, a year to the day after Richard's conviction, I stood before my parents' graves. The polished marble was cool beneath my fingertips. The sun warmed my face. I did it, Mom, Dad, I whispered, a single tear finally tracing a path down my cheek, a tear not of sorrow, but of profound release, of peace. I completed the mission. I found justice for us. I reclaimed our name. And I won't stop there. I'm building something that will ensure no other family has to endure what we did. My phone buzzed, a familiar, discreet vibration. It was Theo. Olivia, we just got a critical tip. A family in Ohio, a single mother, her young son's college fund, their life savings, their entire inheritance, a predatory firm is targeting them, using the exact same insidious tactics Stafford used. They're about to lose everything. I looked out at the city skyline, bathed in the golden light of the morning sun, a new sense of purpose filling me, vibrant and unwavering. The fight wasn't over. It never truly would be. But now, I fought for something bigger than myself. I fought for all the Thomas and Elizabeth Kellers out there, for all the innocent families who had been betrayed, exploited, and discarded. I fought to turn their pain into power, to give them a voice, to ensure their justice. I smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile that reached my eyes. Good, I said, my voice strong, resolute, and filled with a quiet strength. We know exactly what to do. Get our lawyer ready. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a long journey, full of pain and betrayal, but also incredible strength, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt completely betrayed, only to find the strength within yourself to rise above it and reclaim your power? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more stories of overcoming adversity and finding your own justice.